So today we're going to talk about virtual training in a people-driven industry. For those of you who are familiar with Hilton, hopefully all of you, you know that our business is very much built on the experiences that we create for our guests every day when they stay in our hotels. And so as we started looking at how we were going to innovate and evolve our approach to learning and development, it became very obvious that we were going to have to do something that was a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And so the first conversation I had with our Executive Vice President of Brands about this went something like this. We need to move away from week-long instructor-led training programs in our hotels to a virtual learning journey that all of our general managers and sales leaders can go through instead. And he said, that's insane. We are hotel people, and that's what we do is interact with other people. And so, so we sat down and we talked about it, and we talked about it some more, and we talked about it some more. 2 months ago, the Executive Vice President of Brands asked me, our timeline for this conversion is about 18 months. He asked me if we could get it done in 12. He likes it so much with what's happening already. And so we negotiated it to 15 months. But you know, he was willing to not only see it go faster, but to throw more money against it, a lot more money against it, to complete the conversion sooner. And so just to kind of ground you, for those of you who've not maybe stayed with Hilton or may not be as familiar with us, Hilton has been in business for almost 100 years in the business of hospitality. And our culture is very much one of innovation as well as iconic experiences. So you'll see up here, you know, we've had some of the world's biggest stars stay in our hotels, and some of the world's biggest events have happened in our hotels. But we are very much committed to our focus on spreading the light and warmth of hospitality around the world. And so many of you are probably saying, especially if you've taken bad e-learning ever, how does that spread the light and warmth of hospitality, right? And that was sort of the hurdle we had to overcome with our internal stakeholders. So I was telling some folks at breakfast that when I first started working for Hilton 6 years ago, I sat down to do my onboarding training. And I called my boss and I said, I think my computer's broken. I've tried the speakers, I turned the volume up. There's no sound with any of these onboarding e-learnings. And he said, oh yeah, we don't voice over our training here because it costs too much money. So it was literally click and read, click and read, click and read. And I sat at my desk, and for a minute I thought, I wonder if Marriott will hire me back because I'm not sure I want to work here. But I stayed, and we've persevered, and now we do not do non-voiceover e-learning. But that was the legacy that we had to overcome with our internal stakeholders. They were used to some really bad, low-grade, low-budget e-learning solutions that they had seen coming out from our own team. And to be fair, when we went in and said, we want to take these week-long sessions where we bring our general managers in from all around the world. So any general manager at any property that starts working for Hilton has to take a week-long session either in Memphis, Tennessee, if they're part of our focus service portfolio, in McLean, Virginia, if they're part of our full service portfolio in the US, or somewhere else around the world if they work in any of our hotels in Europe, Middle East, Africa, or Asia. We bring them into a room like this. Our general managers, for those of you who've ever worked in hotels, are not really used to sitting down. So we teach the strategy of MBWA, management by walking around. You will see a good GM engaging with his team, engaging with his guests, picking trash up off the floor. So if you see me stop and do that at any point while you're here, it's just ingrained after 17 years in the hospitality industry. So we'd bring them into a room like this. We'd sit them actually very much like this. They'd look at me very much like some of you are looking at me right now, which is, oh my God, why am I here? This is going to be the longest day ever. And then we would proceed to fire hose them with information for about 3 days, 3.5 days, depending on the brand. And then we'd give them a big celebration, hurrah, back you go to your hotels. Hopefully you remember all of this. And as we heard yesterday in Nick's breakout, for those of you who were there, they retained, like he said, about 30% of that information for about 24 hours, and then pretty much all of it was lost within a week. Because now they go back to their hotels, and everything that they've not been taking care of, the air conditioning's broken on floor 5, or the head of HR just quit, and now we have no director of HR in the hotel, all has piled up for that general manager all week. And now she comes back and has to spend the next 3 weeks recovering from being out for 3 days to learn a lot of information that, to be honest, was probably not super relevant to everyone in the room. So we knew we needed to do something to change. We also knew that it was expensive for our owners. So to give you some context, we have about 360,000 team members worldwide, not as big as Walmart, but we think we're pretty big. But 200,000 of those team members are our franchised employees. So they don't work for us at Hilton. They work for someone else who franchises our hotels. And we have to convince those owners to spend the money to send these team members for the training that we require as part of their portfolio. We have a variety of carrots and sticks that we use to enforce that requirement, but the bottom line was it was expensive for our owners to send their team members to training because not only were they paying tuition, they were paying travel, they were paying lodging, they were paying for food and beverage while those team members were out of the office, and somebody had to cover all that work back at the hotel. And if you think about, for those of you who are not focused service hotel aficionados, in our focused service hotel staffing models, they are very, very tight. So when the general manager is out, there's maybe 4 other people who are on staff for that day. So absorbing a full service GM to step out of the hotel, for 3 or 4 days, it's possible. You've got a big executive committee there and people can step up and do the job. When you pull a general manager out of a focused service hotel, you are really leaving them on a skeleton crew. And so we knew we needed to make a better case to our owners, and we needed to make a better experience for our new general managers and sales leaders. So Hilton has a culture of innovation ingrained in our DNA. So if you like air conditioning in your hotel rooms, how many of you like that? Okay, you can thank us. We were the first ones to do that. How many of you watch TV in your hotel rooms? Yeah, raise them. It's not embarrassing. Go ahead and raise them high. Okay, yeah, we were the first ones to put televisions in hotel rooms as well. We were also the first company to have a multi-hotel reservation system. So most of you are probably young enough that you do not remember the days where you would have to call hotel by hotel. Do you have any room at the inn? Do you have any room at the inn? You just call one number, right? And you say, I want to go to Chicago. And what do you have availability? Well, it didn't used to be like that until Hilton created the first multi-hotel reservation system way back in 1948. And then in the 70s, we became the first company to take that reservation system and make it computer-based. And so you can see, we didn't put there's a great picture of this ginormous room with this huge computer in it that used to crunch the numbers to do all those computer-based reservations for Hilton. So, moving into the 21st century, we've recently launched our Digital Key Initiative, and so in the next several years, we will convert every single hotel around the world to an iPhone-ready key. So in many of our hotels already, you can go straight to your room. You don't have to go to the front desk. You don't have to stand in line and wait for somebody to ask you if you're checking in. Of course I'm checking in. Why else do you think I would be standing here? So you can go straight to your room. You can pull out your iPhone. You press your little thumb on your Touch ID, and it will let you into your room with Bluetooth technology. We're also working on Connected Room right now so that consumers will be able to use their own devices to interact with the television, to interact with room service, et cetera. So that culture of innovation is in our DNA, and that's why when we said, hey, we want to innovate how we do learning and development, although we did encounter some initial resistance, we ultimately were able to make a very strong business case for why we were going to go on this journey together. And together, I think, is a really important point, because you can't undergo a transformation like this without your business partners on board. So I couldn't just do this transformation and leave my brand business partners behind. I really had to get them to buy into what virtual learning was. So first I had to explain it, right? And by virtual learning, and I'll show you the components of our program, I did not mean 12 hours of e-learning in lieu of getting together and networking with people. So it's very highly interactive and has lots of different elements. We talked about the increased reusability of learning modules and delivery consistency. Why is delivery consistency important? When you stay in one of our hotels and you're a Hilton Honors guest, I'm sure some of you in this room are, what do you want from us? Consistent level of service. If you're a Diamond member, you want us to thank you for your status. You want us to make sure those water bottles are in your room. You want to make sure you get your breakfast coupons, depending on what hotel brand you're staying at. And sometimes we're inconsistent with how we train our team members. So different brands use different language around how they were doing that. And so as team members move from brand to brand, they're actually being trained differently to deliver the same consistent service. That does not actually enable us to deliver consistent service. As our general managers move from brand to brand, we also wanted to acknowledge the knowledge they already had. So if you've worked in our portfolio at a DoubleTree hotel and now you're going to work at a Hilton hotel, yeah, you need to learn what the Hilton brand stands for and what are the nuances of that brand, who are our target customer, what are the differences in your own property, your team members, et cetera. But the underlying operational systems are the same. So if you've been using our guest satisfaction system for 20 years, I don't need to bring you into a workshop and spend an hour telling you, go to the on-queue lobby and then click on this link and then go into Salt. I mean, they're looking at us like, are you insane? Why am I even here again? So reusing the learning modules and having a consistent delivery platform. 80% of our virtual platform now is the same across all of the brands. So the baseline operational training is the exact same content, and then we've layered on top of that by position, general manager or sales leader, and then by brand, Hampton Hotels, DoubleTree Hotels, Embassy Suites, and then finally by region. So there are nuances to how we operate in Asia Pacific versus Europe, Middle East, Africa versus Latin America, Caribbean. Increased collaboration with team members around the globe. We're a global company. As you saw, we're in 104 countries. And so we don't want to just operate in silos. The people in the US are only allowed to talk to the people in the US. We want them to collaborate as a global team and learn from each other. And then we wanted increased capacity and scalability for learning programs. We have one of the largest pipelines in the hospitality industry. We already have over 5,000 hotels open. I have a delivery team of 7 globally. So I needed to figure out how I was going to deliver in 104 countries in 40 plus languages with 7 people. This is the answer to that algebra question. So we also pitched what the benefits were going to be. So we estimated that our owners were spending somewhere between $1,500 and $4,000, depending on what region they were in, where the programs were, just on travel expenses. That doesn't include the tuition. So they were paying probably another $2,000 to $3,000 in tuition on top of travel expenses. You can see why an owner would really drag their feet on sending someone to training. And in some of our focus service brands, we have general manager turnover of up to 40%. So you might have an owner who has to send someone every single year and pay that money. The profit margins do not justify that cost. It allows leaders to stay connected with their teams. So you put a new leader in a hotel, a lot of times there's some turnaround that needs to happen. You need to build credibility with your team and trust. You need to get to know your guests, your best clients in the neighborhood. And instead of doing any of those things, we're saying get on a plane, fly to Memphis, spend 4 days in training. By the way, Beale Street is really tempting if you're a 20-year-old GM. So we had a few times where we had to bail people out of prison or call their ownership group and say, sorry, so-and-so is not going to make it. It allows them to stay in location, stay connected with their teams, build those relationships, and take some time out each day to do some learning over time. It reduces our carbon footprint, so we're very committed to, at Hilton, we have a program proprietary to the company called LightStay, and we've actually committed to some pretty significant reductions in our carbon footprint, also our use of water, our waste production, et cetera, over a period of time. And so this feeds well into our Travel with Purpose platform, corporate responsibility, to reduce our carbon footprint around the world. And then increased participation in application due to reduced expenses. So I mentioned that the tuition was upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the program. We're now going to be able to offer that for under $1,500 per brand, no travel expenses. So we cut the tuitions pretty much in half and sometimes more than in half. And then we got rid of all the travel expenses as well. So we wanted to deploy industry-leading learning strategy and content. We wanted to increase our owner satisfaction and reduce their costs. We wanted to modernize the learning to enable continuous learning. So the other problem with ILT is you go, you learn, you go back to your hotel, and you have a question. It's 3 months later, and you're finally going to get around to using that key hotel marketing report, and you can't quite remember where to find it. or how to read it, or what is this telling me? And then you'd have to call your brand performance support person, hope they called you back, maybe email, get back and forth. Now you can go back and you can retake short little video pieces of that training just in time as you need it. You can also push it to team members to say, hey, I want you to pull my key hotel marketing reports, and here's a little learning to help you learn how to do that. And then removing the barriers to training completion. And again, that price point was really the primary barrier, but also travel. Especially sometimes we have general managers with disabilities that make travel difficult for them. That was another area that we were trying to circumvent with some of this was, for people who can't travel or who maybe are based in Siberia. Literally, we have hotels in Siberia. It's like a 2-day trip to get from Siberia to Munich, Frankfurt, some more centrally located Istanbul, where we're doing the training. So 2 days to get there, 3 days in the session, 2 days at least to get back, and sometimes you can't get your visa. So sometimes you plan all of that, and then at the last minute, Germany won't let you in, or Turkey won't let you in. So you couldn't come to the training, and we might not do it again in your part of the world for 6 more months. So you could be enrolled for up to a year without any onboarding training as a new general manager at one of our hotels. So we first focused on socializing this internally with our stakeholders. And like I said, many of them were unfamiliar with what virtual learning was. And so we put some of their director, senior director team through a very engaging virtual instructor-led experience with a partner of ours, Dale Carnegie. They loved it. They couldn't stop talking about it. They were like, this is virtual learning? This is so amazing. So, so we got the senior executives to buy in, because whenever you tell senior executives you can cut costs by 40% and increase compliance, 2 thumbs up, right? Oh, and the best part was I had the budget to pay for it, so it was my money. So that part really helped as well, and I'll be happy to tell you how I did that at the end. We then kind of targeted that director, senior director group. I'm not going to lie to you, the VPs were kind of our roadblock, and we were kind of pulling, they didn't want to make time for this, but they weren't really sure about this virtual learning. I still have a few skeptics out there, but I'll show you the results that we got with our pilot, which has quieted most of that. The other piece of the change management that I cannot stress enough is your own teams. So when your own teams are used to a world that is instructor-led training, they love to be the sage on the stage, they love to travel the world and deliver training and have this group of people, and they get energy out of that, and all of a sudden you say in 2 years we're going to go completely virtual with this, and you can just hear the entire room go, what am I going to do? My job's going to be obsolete. I had so many people ask us, well, are you going to fire us all? Are you going to lay off your entire delivery staff? No, as a matter of fact, we're going to need more. We're going to need more people to do virtual learning delivery than we did for in-person, because we're going to have greater absorption. And so we put them through a virtual learning experience so they could experience it as the learner, and they came out really excited. And then we invested a lot of money, about $100,000, to certify our own team members in virtual instructor facilitation techniques. So we did a multi-part training, it was done virtually, for them to help them learn how to use WebEx Training Center, which is the platform we use, but how to really be an engaging virtual instructor. And most of them really love it. I have a couple who are probably not going to make that transition. They just are not going to be able to let go of the excitement they get from the in-person experience. But the way I pitched it to the team was, this is where the learning industry is going. This isn't just where Hilton is going, this is where the world is going. And what I'm doing is investing in you as an individual, because the skills you're going to learn from us will serve you well, whether you choose to make your career here or whether you take your career elsewhere. These are skills that you're going to need to be a 21st century L&D person. And so that really created a lot of buy-in and excitement on the team. So this is a video that we showed to our internal stakeholders. Is there sound? I'll go back a minute while we figure it out. Anyway, we built this on a shoestring budget, and then we pushed this out to all of our internal stakeholders and then to our general managers before they first engaged with the virtual platform. Because again, there was a lot of sort of question about what's virtual, what do you mean by that, why are we going to virtual? And so I'm going to try it again and see if the volume works. So as they mentioned in the video, our approach is a 12-week blended program, which is a combination of self-paced e-learning, not just the point and click and read that I talked about before, but highly interactive e-learning, short videos that can be watched multiple times if needed. We have virtual instructor-led cohorts, so you do your sessions with a cohort. It's the same cohort of people for 12 weeks, and they have a social platform that those cohorts engage on throughout that 12-week journey. And then we also provide virtual one-on-one coaching to support the additional development or application of skills, especially if somebody is not maybe catching on to a piece of it as fast. They can schedule one-on-one coaching sessions with the instructor for additional in-depth information or tutoring on how it applies to their area. Or sometimes they have a special situation, you know, my owner won't blah, 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 and you're telling me to do this, now what do I do? That one-on-one coaching provides that opportunity. So we did the pilot late 2016, and these are the scores out of 5. You'll see I will be able to apply the knowledge and skills learned in this program to my job was a perfect 5 out of 5. That was about 0.75 points higher than what we got in our ILT programs. So they found the content immediately applicable. They thought it was a very effective way to learn the material. And the delivery had the right level of user interaction or involvement, all very high scores. The learning lobby was friendly and easy to navigate, was a little bit lower, and so what we did is we built an upfront module where now, before we dive in, we actually spend a little bit of time helping the team members get more comfortable with the technology. We also send them a care kit, and so it goes to their hotel before they start the VILT, and it has a little door hanger that says, "Shh, learning in progress," and on the back, it has some tips for them of how to maximize virtual instructor-led sessions. You know, find a quiet place, get noise-canceling headphones, you know, make sure you block your calendar, let your team know that you're unavailable for that 90 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And that's really been helpful as we continue to go. And as you can see, the feedback has been extremely positive from our team members. They really are loving the platform and the engagement, and many of them are staying engaged through that social platform well beyond the end of their 12 weeks. So it's great to kind of see them come in there and problem solve together. So they're not just kind of coming back to whomever and dumping a problem in their lap. They now have a group of peers that they trust and can rely on. And so one of the keys to our success is we sort of did a blended approach in terms of partners. We brought in a new partner who had a lot of great technology experience to build the actual VILT platform for us, the portal through which all of this training sits. But each brand has its own distinct personality, and we've had providers that we work with, vendors, who really understand those brands. And so bringing those vendors onto this project so the brand leaders felt comfortable that we were going to accurately convey their brand essence, you know, their brand knowledge to the general managers and sales leaders was a critical component of success, because there was that comfort level there that it wasn't a full risk, because these were proven vendors that we've worked with for years and years and years. Now, we had to upskill some of those vendors a little bit because they were not fully always conversant in the VILT environment, but that's when we would partner them with our overarching technology vendor to help kind of bring them along on the journey. And so with that, and being mindful of Scott's admonition, I have left 10 minutes for question and answer. So what questions do you have for me? Yes?
Can you remind me who the audience was for the video again?
Yep, the audience for the video, the question was who was the audience for the video. Those were our internal stakeholders, so our vice presidents of the brands, as well as the senior vice presidents and EVP of the brands. And then after we socialized it with them, we pushed it out broader to our VP and above audience, so they were aware of what was happening in that part of the organization.
Hey, that's really great. I guess my question is, if you're doing instructor-led or virtual instructor-led, you do have a schedule, you do have a cohort, they're around the world, different time zones. How do you manage the schedule, and how do you, do you have problems with people attending for different reasons, business interruptions? Because that would be problematic for us, yeah. And I would imagine you're overcoming some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do put the cohorts regionally. So the teams in Asia generally are together because they're on similar time zones. Because there is no good time zone in the US and Australia that matches up, ever. And so we've got teams in Europe generally together with teams in Middle East and Africa. That doesn't mean we don't sometimes have cross-pollination. Somebody in London who joins an Americas group and cohort because that works better for them. The 90-minute sessions are mandatory, and when they sign up for the 12-week journey, we tell them, you will meet at this time every single week. It's the same time every single week, so they can block it on their calendar. And we tend to find that Friday afternoons are actually the most successful time to do this because things are a little quieter in the hotels. There's not a lot of client meetings. Generally, clients don't want to come tour the hotel on Friday afternoon. They want to go home and start their weekend. And so Friday afternoons have been a good, successful time for us. We do set the expectation that if you miss a session, you can only miss one session, or you have to go back and start with a new cohort. And if you miss a session, you have to connect with the coach virtually to make up what you missed. But there are some requirements there in terms of if you miss more than one session, then basically we say, hey, now's maybe not the right time for you. You can go ahead and start your journey with the next cohort. The e-learning that you've done will stay as part of your profile, but you're going to have to go back and start over with the cohort sessions.
We are also making the transition to virtual, and this is fabulous. Thank you. How do you leverage this platform or this portal for ongoing development as well as the onboarding?
So for ongoing development, so this platform sits outside of our LMS, and I'll be very candid, we use SuccessFactors as our LMS right now. We're in the midst of moving to a new human capital management system, which is Oracle, and basically we did not want to get caught in the middle of all of that technology transition and derail what we were doing here. So we pulled our IT partners in right on the front end. We used a trusted IT partner who already had been through our security review, so that cut about 16 years off of the project timeline. And so we have this portal that communicates back to our LMS, but it sits separately. So this content also sits in the LMS, and if you complete it in the portal, you can go back to your learning profile and see that you've completed it, and you can retake it either through the portal or through our LMS at any point in time. Yes? Oh, sorry. We do still have face-to-face training. So one of the things that we love to do at Hilton is meet. We really like to meet with each other a lot. And so we do. We still have regional workshops for our hotels. Many of the brands will do regional workshops each year. Every other year, we have full brand conferences. So GMs from that brand or brands come in from all around the world, and they have 3 or 4 days with our senior leaders and thought partners from outside of the business, and huge opportunities to network. So we do a lot of that. We definitely do still sometimes do in-person training, but for our hotels, and last year in a market like Chicago, New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, we don't have great concentration of hotels in, let's say, Des Moines, Iowa, or rural Mississippi. And so for those folks, this virtual interaction really plugs a gap that they weren't getting in-person training anyway. Now they at least have the virtual interaction because they don't have a whole lot of other properties in their immediate area with whom to interact. But we absolutely still believe in in-person interaction, and we've been very clear with our business partners that what we do at those regional workshops and what we do in those brand conferences has absolutely got to tie back to what the virtual content and experience is, so that as a continual learning journey, not these distinct things that just happen in time, completely unconnected to each other. And so they've been really on board with that with us, which is great. Was there,
yeah. I saw that you had some participant feedback, and I was just wondering if you had anything more around their performance and role over time in comparison to standard classroom delivery, and if you saw anything there.
So we're still assessing that with leaders. And to be honest, for us, it's a little bit, because a lot of these are franchised employees, we don't have access to all of their performance data like we do for our own team members. So as we push this out more into our full service portfolio, we'll have better access to their performance numbers, et cetera, that we don't have access to in our franchised properties. So no, I don't have specifics to give you yet, but we do intend to be able to track that once the population is more primarily our own managed employees.
So kind of no
No, this was a pilot rollout. We did simultaneous sessions of virtual and an in-person sales success program. And these were the results on sales success. They were higher. I mean, our scores are always high, even for in-person learning. We really should be like on a 10-point scale, because on a 5-point scale, everything is somewhere between a 4.15 and a 5.0. But everything was about 0.2 to 0.4 higher on the VILT, except for that first one that I talked about, which was the learning lobby. And so we went back and kind of rejiggered how we did the introduction and preparing people for that. But all of the retention one was particularly higher. It was about 0.5 points higher. So, yeah.
So I have two questions. One
Sure.
is, are you willing to share which platform you're using for the virtual
Yeah.
program? And then the other one is, how did you really encourage the social engagement component? I know that usually is the most challenging of all of them.
Yes. Well, we're very social people in hospitality. So my other hat is I do talent management, and it's the bane of my existence how nice we are when we get to performance reviews. But when it comes to learning, that's awesome. So the platform provider is a company called Dynamit, and I'm happy to connect you with them. They're kind of a smaller boutique-ish firm, but they've been a great partner for us. We also did, I didn't have time in this session to talk about it, we converted our call center training to a virtual platform prior to this. We learned a lot from that experience that we did not replicate when we did this, but our reservation system is still Citrix-based, so it brought some very unique challenges to that training. Moving to virtual training for our HRCC call centers has enabled us to take our actual HRCC agents virtual around the US. And so in 2015, we committed to hiring 10,000 military veterans and their spouses by 2018. We exceeded that number before the end of 2016, and we've now expanded that commitment to 20,000. A lot of those people that we've hired through that program are part of our HRCC. So military spouses now can be virtual, and they can take their career with them as they move from posting to posting. So I'm posted in San Diego, and now I'm posted in North Carolina. Before, you'd have to quit your job and go find something new in North Carolina. Not only can you keep your job, you can continue to develop your career. You can become a virtual supervisor or a virtual manager through that program. So Dynamit, we had already worked with on the platform for HRCC. And then we leveraged them to go a little bit more big bang here with what we're doing for GMs and sales leaders. And what was the other?
It was just about
Social.
engagement. Yeah.
They just naturally really like it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. We use SuccessFactors Jam as our platform. Now that we're moving to Oracle, I have to tell you I'm a little bit nervous. Our digital team is doing some research on what is going to replace that. I haven't loved anything I've seen that they suggested yet, so we're continuing to negotiate that. But it's easy to use. It's part of the requirements of the course, and the instructor comes in there. So my team members are expected to come in and interact as well. So it just kind of feeds itself. And like I said, we're just very social people. We're not financial services. We're hospitality, so we generally like people. I should say our team members generally like talking to other people, because if you work in hospitality and you don't like other people, it's not really a great fit in the long run. So, yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the virtual coaching piece? When is it used as part of the learning journey, and how is it used?
So all of the instructors keep virtual office hours, kind of like your college professors used to do, but virtually. And you can set up time in 15-minute increments to get virtual coaching on anything. So it might be, because we do a lot of application-based learning. So for example, we'll teach them how to use the guest satisfaction reporting tool, and then we ask them to go look at their own hotel's results and come back with some ideas of what they're going to address. So is it your cleanliness scores? Is it your service scores? Is it your food and beverage scores? And really, analyze where you need to kind of make some changes at your property. Somebody may look at those results and sort of say, I don't know, all of my scores are terrible. I'm taking over an underperforming property. Where do I start? And that's where that one-on-one coaching can be very much tailored to. Well, let's look at them together. Okay, what I see is this, and why don't you work on that? Some of the one-on-one coaching also could be around some of the management and leadership skills. So, my team members have been here for 30 years. I'm the new GM. I'm 20. Most of my team members are 50. I'm having a hard time establishing rapport. do you have some ideas to help me do that? So it's very much tailored to whatever it is that that team member is struggling with as they go through their journey. So, yes.
Yes, you mentioned that you're using the SuccessFactors Jam for the social collaboration. You also mentioned that you all are looking to move over possibly your LMS and your talent management system. How will you capture that knowledge that's in Jam?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's part of the RFP process that we're working on with HR Digital right now, which is basically they have to be able to port over our historical interaction data from Jam to whatever new platform we use. So hopefully it will be something like, this is oversimplifying it, but it'll basically be we pick it up from this platform, we put it on this platform, the interactivity will be roughly the same, and the content should all basically carry over from what was in the old system. Now, I've been around long enough and I've done enough transformations to know that that is probably a little bit optimistic on how it's going to end up, but that's what we're working through right now.
Great, thank you so much.
You are so welcome.